Aloha kako, and welcome to the West Hawaii Association of Realtors 2020 Mayoral Candidate Interviews. My name is Kristen Moreland, and I chair the Government Affairs Committee for our association. Our committee extended this opportunity to participate in our interviews to each candidate who filed. While our association does not endorse candidates, we believe it is important to inform our membership and the community at large. This is an opportunity for the candidates to answer questions related to real estate and real property rights as they pertain to their platform and policies. The interview will consist of a brief introduction and biography, opening statement of 1 minute, then we'll proceed to 6 questions. Each will be timed for 2 minutes. Then the candidate will have an opportunity for a summary statement. This interview will be conducted by Tanya Power, and Tanya is a member of our Government Affairs Committee. Let's meet our candidate. Mitch Roth has substantial government, administrative, and management experience, including as a national trainer for the Community Policing Institute under the U.S. Department of Justice. Roth, 55, has been elected prosecuting attorney for the county since 2012. He won re-election in 2016. The office, which has 3 locations, Hilo, Kona, and Kamuela, employs 120 people. Under his leadership, the Hawaii County Office of the Prosecuting Attorney has prosecuted several cold cases, implemented the first restorative justice program in a prosecutor's office nationally, created a sexual assault unit with attorneys experienced in such cases, and set up community outreach and training. He hired counselors to bolster victim services and assist victims of property crimes. Under his leadership, the office helped launch the Big Island Juvenile Intake and Assessment Center. Work in this area has contributed to a reduction in juvenile crime in the county by more than 50%. Roth has also helped start a Veterans Treatment Court. Roth has a bachelor's degree from the University of Hawaii at Manoa and a Juris Doctorate from Whittier Law School. Mitch and his wife, Noriko Yamada Roth, have 3 adult children. All are graduates of Waikea High School. Roth is a founding member of the Hawaii Island Visitor Aloha Society, VASH, the Community Coalition for Neighborhood Safety, Next Tech STEM Opportunities for Youth, and has helped bring the Citizens Emergency Response Teams, or CERT, to Hawaii Island. He is dedicated to helping young people achieve their goals. Roth is a board member of the Boys and Girls Club of Big Island and Camp Agape Big Island, a 4-day camp for children of incarcerated parents. He is also a member of Rotary Club of Hilo and Hilo Exchange Club. At this time, we welcome candidate Roth, and we welcome him to make an opening statement for 1 minute. Candidate Roth.
Aloha. Thank you very much for this opportunity to address the West Hawaii Association of Realtors. You've heard my bio. One of the things that you talked about there is that I am the father of 3 children, all who went to school here, but are now living their lives on the mainland. And that's a real issue for me, that our kids, and not just our kids, we have several other people that are leaving our islands because there's really not quality jobs and affordable housing, things that keep them here. And so one of the things I hope on accomplishing as the mayor, as your mayor, is making sure that we can change the way Hawaii goes forward into the future for the next generations and the generations to come. I want to create a Hawaii where people, if they leave, they want to come back, but really where they want to stay. So again, I thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to this interview, and I guess here we go.
And now we'll begin with questions. Tanya?
Thank you, Mitch, for joining us today. The first question we have today is on permitting. In 2015, Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism released a report for housing demand saying the Big Island needed 21,564 additional housing units by 2025. We are nowhere near this goal. Contractors cite one of their biggest challenges is the time the permitting approval process takes. Our current permitting process is complicated by a lack of effective communications and procedures between the approving departments. What will you do as mayor to streamline the permitting process and install time limits for review?
Well, that is actually one of the things I plan on doing as mayor is actually setting time limits. As the prosecuting attorney, if I charge a murder case, I have a time limit to get those cases going and actually to go to trial. For a permitting process, we should definitely have time limits on how long it takes government to go through this. The bigger problem that I see with the permitting process is that we're not consistent with our interpretations. Through our permitting process, government often takes the most restrictive interpretation rather than the black and white letter of the law. I intend on making sure that we are interpreting our laws consistently, using the statutes, but in the black and white letter of the law interpretation. I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that. The other issue that's brought up here is currently, it seems like a lot of our departments are working in silos rather than working as a team together. And I think that's really a leadership thing that I'm able to bring into place. With the prosecutor's office, I've been able to make some significant changes. We went from an office that I don't think before me had anybody who was the employee of the year, supervisor of the year, or manager of the year. In the last 8 years, we've won several of those awards. And part of that is the way you lead, making sure that people are working together and want to work there together. So streamlining by time, streamlining by making sure that the permitting process is consistently read together, and furthermore, making sure that agencies that are bringing these projects through are working together to shepherd projects through. It's also a philosophy switch. And the philosophy of government should be to help not only our people, but our businesses thrive rather than permitting them to exist. And I think that's what we'll do. We'll change the culture of Hawaii.
Thank you. The next question is on workforce housing. Everyone agrees, you just stated it, that there is a need for more affordable housing on the Big Island. Workforce housing brings housing closer to jobs, alleviates traffic congestion, and healthier families and communities. What ideas do you have to develop and support development of workforce housing?
There's a lot of opportunities that we have to reach out with grant funding. I know from talking to some people in Kauai who work at the Department of Housing, we had monies that we left on the table because, and I say we, I mean the County of Hawaii had monies that they left on the table because the county director of housing at that time didn't want to go through the trouble of writing grants. As a prosecuting attorney in my department, there is nobody who is assigned as a grant writer or hired as a grant writer. The county doesn't have grant writers that help each of the departments. So one of the ideas that I have is to bring in a cadre of grant writers that can work with each of the agencies to make sure that we're not leaving money on the table, make sure that we're actively seeking those funds, being proactive. As a prosecutor, my budget is $11 million, but about $3 million of that comes from grant funds because we went out and we've been proactive. The other thing goes back to that last question, and that is making sure that when we're working with projects, that the agencies are working together. So your housing, your finance, your water, all planning. You have to have a team that is working together to usher those projects through, rather than falling into each of those silos and where they're not working together. And so, as a leader, I intend on making sure that our division directors are working together, but they have a team of people to make sure that those procedures go through in a expedited way.
Great, thank you. The next question's on zoning, and this is a two-part question. I'm going to tell them to you both, but they're in front of you if you need to review.
Okay.
Number one, what is your position on short-term vacation rentals in both non-conforming and resort node zoned locations? And number two, do you plan to open additional properties for non-conforming use permits?
So I think that there's two things. I support having short-term vacation rentals in appropriate places. So in the conforming areas, I mean, that's the law right now. For the non-conforming areas, there should be a process that, you know, if someone wants to put up a short-term vacation rental, but it's non-conforming, there should be a process that allows them to at least try to get that. And if it's okay with the neighbors and it's appropriate for the time, the economy, the things that are going on, I think that that is appropriate. So I guess that kind of answers the second. Do you plan to open additional properties for non-conforming use permits? I think if it's appropriate, yes. If not, then I probably wouldn't, but it will depend. I think we have to have a process to allow it, though.
Thank you. Short-term vacation rentals. With the COVID-19 restrictions, current short-term vacation rental owners have not been able to rent their units. In light of this restriction, would your administration offer a complimentary extension of the current expiration of the STVR permits year-end 2021?
So this is really a trick question that you guys are posing here. It's a trick question because if it is conforming under 25.416, it's a one-time fee. If it's non-conforming, then you have to go through the annual renewal process. So it's really interesting what has happened with this law. The law was written in, and this is one of those examples of how you interpret the law. There's a section in 25.416 1B5 that says that owners of short-term vacation rentals shall notify the director when a short-term rental establishment, and here's the word, permanently ceases to operate for any reason. So if you look at the definition of permanently, it's generally for long periods of time. Under the law, the way the law is written, you know, we're in COVID. This is a temporary period of time, and it shouldn't matter if you rent to somebody for 6 months, a year, 2 years. If your intent is to go back after that rental, technically the law says you're fine. Again, the interpretation is one of those things that our government currently has in its philosophy of permitting people to exist, rather helping people to thrive and really do well. I tend on making sure that we are interpreting the laws, black and white, letter of the law, in a way that's going to help our community thrive and not just permitting them to exist.
Thank you for the clarification on the difference between non-conforming and already sitting there with your one-time paid fee. Thank you. Our next question is on infrastructure improvements. There are many areas of the island that the responsibilities of the county and the state overlap, such as roads. If elected, what do you propose to coordinate state and county projects?
So which projects, I guess, is the question, but there's a lot of projects.
Queen K Highway.
Yeah, there's a lot of projects that we need to be working together, like our highways and our roads. Oftentimes, having sat as the chair of the Hawaii State Safety and Highway Plan and the Governor's Highway Safety Committee, there's a lot of roads that intersect, and government really needs to work together to make sure that they're working together on our roads, for example. Roads are a really good one, but there's a lot of other infrastructure plans where, you know, we need to make sure that they're moving forward, especially now coming out of COVID. There's shovel-ready jobs. A lot of these jobs need to get going, and as many of them that are out there that are already approved, we need to really push those forward. So I'm a big believer in working with our state and other partners, federal partners. I think this is an opportunity for us to do something a little bit different, working with our legislatures to make sure that we have funds for those projects that are important. For example, in West Hawaii, the Kealakea wastewater treatment plant, homeless housing, there's state funds, there's state initiatives. We need to be working with them on just about all of these.
Thank you. Our final question's on taxation. The primary source of revenue is the collection of real property tax here in the county. What other revenue streams do you envision, and how do you plan to balance the budget?
So, one of the things that our county has done again and again and again is we've only looked to taxes versus fixing a lot of the things that need fixing in the county. A couple of years ago, I started bringing the legislators not the legislators, but the county council people into my office to teach them how the budget was made, because they're making the budget and we're giving them an input, but they didn't really understand what we're giving them because we weren't giving it to them, we're giving it to finance. And so if you don't understand why people are working overtime, what they're doing, the things that they need, it's really difficult to set a realistic budget. And so one of the things I intend on doing is talking with not only the council people, but in each department, going to talk to people at every level. Having talked to some of these people out there at this time, I can tell you I've heard stories from people who've worked in a county department for 12 years that haven't even talked to their own director. And they'll tell you things like, they give us stuff that we don't need. They don't give us things that we do need. And that raises the cost of government. The other things that we need to do is we need to look at public-private partnerships to help fund some of our projects. It doesn't have to be the county running everything and employing all the people. When we try to grow government and make sure that government employees are doing all the building, we're paying another tax at the end, which is the retirement fees for a lot of these people that are working. So I think we need to rethink the way we are working government. This is a great opportunity for us to make changes that we've never done before, but we're going to have to as we go through it in the age of government spending after COVID.
Thank you. Kristen?
This is the time when we'd ask you to go ahead and give us a summary, Candidate Roth. So the floor is yours again. This is for 30 seconds.
Okay, so there's three things that make me different from all the other candidates. One, I'm currently in government. I know how government works. And if you don't know how government works, you can get in a lot of trouble. Working with civil service and things like that could get you sued. The second thing is I'm an attorney and I know how to read the law and I know how to interpret the law. And I know, especially important for realtors, how to make sure that those interpretations are consistent and actually working through. As we see with the STVRs, the interpretations that we're using now aren't what the law says, and it's costing the community a lot of problems, and it's not allowing them to thrive. And finally, I'm an innovative problem solver that's actually solved real world problems and created programs in government with very little funds and has made super positive changes, which has actually saved our county a lot of money. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope I can get your endorsements.
Mahalo, Candidate Roth and Tanya Power, for your willingness to participate in our program. We wish you the best on Election Day. To our audience, mahalo for tuning in. Don't forget that July 9th is the last day to register to vote in Hawaii. Primary election ballots will be delivered by July 21st for the August 8th primary, and the general election is November 3rd. Mahalo for watching, and please vote. Good day.
Thank you.